a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye to Piccadilly, farewell Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. Pack up your troubles in your own gig bag and smile, smile, smile. While you Lucifer to light your bag, smile, boys, that's the sign. What's the use of worrying? It never was worthwhile. So, pack up your troubles in your own gig bag and smile, smile, smile.
Your Honor, citizens of Stratford and guests, welcome to the town of Stratford's 13th Remembrance Day service. On parade are our veterans, the Stratford RCMP, Detachment 20 Corps, Stratford Royal Canadian Army Cadets, and Crossroads Rural Fire Company. The parade marshal is Captain Karen Spears, retired, and the PA system is provided by Richie Bolger. Would you please stand and join the Stratford Choir under Kay Linkletter in singing our national anthem, followed by Abide With Me. 100 years ago today, in France, at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent on the war to end all wars. We were victorious, but the Versailles Treaty of 1919 failed to keep the peace, and in 1939 we were once again plunged into 5 more years of madness during the Second World War. The veterans of the First and Second World Wars were members of what has been termed the greatest generation. We are forever indebted to them for their sacrifice and values that sustained our nation through 2 world wars and the Great Depression. Their example has established Canada as one of the most respected nations in the world. 1.7 million Canadians served in the 2 world wars and Korea, and over 112,000 never came home. But we must understand and acknowledge that no one returns from combat unscarred, and there is no glory in war. The Canadian forces have been charged with an unyielding mandate to serve Canada through maintenance of its security and defense of its sovereignty, if necessary, by the application of lethal force. Therefore, members of the Canadian Armed Forces serve under an unlimited liability, which requires that a soldier is expected to offer his or her own security and well-being in accomplishment of assigned missions in the defense of Canada. In effect, everyone who serves in the military under the unlimited liability has written a check payable to the Canadian nation for an amount up to and including their life. Today, we honor them all. Since 1947, Canadian soldiers have served in 80 international United Nations and NATO missions around the world in troubled foreign lands that seldom welcomed them. Often they found themselves challenged by both sides of conflict. 126 Canadian soldiers have died on peacekeeping duties with the United Nations, and another 158 in the counterinsurgency war in Afghanistan. Almost forgotten are the hundreds more who came home wounded and scarred by debilitating injuries, both physical and mental. The reverberations of war continue long after the last shell is fired. They roll outward from one generation to the next, like waves from a blast. For those who answered the call to arms that secured our freedoms, and those that continue to do so today, we gather to remember their sacrifice and to honor their service and their legacy. Following the last post, we observe silence in remembrance of the fallen. The lament, flowers of the forest, and the act of remembrance and commitment to remember will follow. We will then sound reveille. The last post and reveille is played by Isaac Mazer and the lament by Colin Bryden. The act of remembrance is read by Tom Ogden, and the commitment to remember by Corporal Julie Tam. We will now play the lament, Flowers of the Forest. Would Tom Ogden and Corporal Julie Tam come to the mic, please?
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
They were young as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry their torch and never forget. We will remember them.
One century ago, 100 years ago, on the 11th day of the 11th month, at the 11th hour, armistice was signed. It was signed to end the war that ends all wars. And since that time, the people of the free world have gathered each year to remember the tremendous cost of war. That's why we've gathered here, to recognize the fallen and those that live. It is comfort that we can call on the words of Scripture to draw some peace. From Psalm 46 we read, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And words of comfort from Psalm 121, I lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence will my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. And then the command that we've got from Micah 6 and 8. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with our God? On this Remembrance Day, I'd like to share some memories of two veterans, first-generation immigrants to Canada. It's interesting. One veteran was from the First World War, and one veteran was from the Second World War. They both came from families with 16 brothers and sisters. World War I had just started. The veteran was a young fella, underage. Actually, he was too short to get into the military. But he found a friend in a doctor who said, well, you're 17 and a half, you're almost old enough, and I'm sure you'll grow a half an inch, so you might as well join up. But his combat role was different. He was a munitions driver. He had a team of mules, and he had the privilege of hauling live ammunition to the front. You can't do that in the daylight, you have to do it at night. So he hauls this live ammunition to the front in the darkness while the enemy is shelling all the time. Potential for imminent death on a daily basis. You talk to him, what do you remember? Well, he's got some humorous things. He remembered standing in parade, watching the headlights dance on the collars of the guy in front of him. He remembers sleeping in the trenches and hoping the rats didn't get them. He even would give an account of the mustard gas poisoning that killed so many of his friends. Both he and his brother, who signed up at the same time, were affected by mustard gas. They had a hard time breathing for the rest of their lives. Why did he go? Why did he go to war? He wasn't even old enough. Well, apparently the glory of war was still fresh in his mind because his brothers had seen the Boer War. And they went to the Boer War conflict and came back so fast they thought if he doesn't get involved, he might miss out on something. Boy, was he ever surprised. 4 years of living in the trenches. 4 years of hauling munitions. Then the mustard gas. And then, of course, 100 years ago, the war was over. He settled down in the land he had moved to. He settled down in Canada and raised a family. And every year, Remembrance Day, he wanted to make sure that he went out to services like this to show his respect for his comrades who had fallen. But he didn't talk about war much. The memories were just too much. He was thankful to make it back alive. He was thankful to live in peace. And then, of course, the war to end all wars didn't succeed. This next fellow was a veteran of the Second World War and the Korean campaign. It was 1938. He was living in Ireland. He had a terrific job of picking potatoes and the privilege of working in the farm. He could sleep on the hay. They didn't pay him anything. So the idea of signing up with the Irish Fusiliers sounded pretty good. Clean clothes, a meal, and a paycheck. He signed up. His captain could smell the imminence of war, had his unit positioned in Holland when the Blitzkrieg took place. Active combat. They retreated, forced march, 48 hours non-stop, to the beaches of Dunkirk. They arrived, mile after mile of troop waiting to get rescued, mile after mile of good machinery being destroyed. They formed up, marched down, got on a troop carrier, arrived in England, greeted by the King of England. And he said, "Fellas, you look like a mess. Get yourself washed and cleaned up because we expect Jerry's going to be here on the beach imminently." He spent his active days North Africa, the Middle East. They took Sicily. By the time they were marching in Italy, it was a joy, because the Americans enjoined the gunships would line up, 24-hour bombardment. They would put on their kilts, grab their equipment, and sound the bagpipes and march 10 kilometers. And do it over again. They marched right through to the top end of Italy. Didn't stop there. Was active in the combat, of course, in Europe as well. He was disbanded. 6 weeks, and he would have been discharged from the army. But his commanding officer realized that something was going to start and happen imminently in Korea. They were one of the oldest troops to head to Korea. Active combat again. He remembers stories where live grenades fell in the midst of their gathering when they were having a church service. Didn't go off. He remembers marching with 2 other comrades. Both of them were shot, killed. He lived. He came back from the war and emigrated to Canada, the land where he felt he could live freely. How can these guys do that? How can they live with the horrors of war in their minds? What kept them going? Psalm 23 comes to mind. That poet, that musician, that warrior and king penned some beautiful words. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Each of these men faced death many times while in active combat. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, and thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, and thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The key to that passage is found in that word shadow. The sun is shining today. We do have a beautiful shadow. But his comfort was coming from the shadow cast by the light of God. He knew God was with him. It was reflected in his shadow. David had confidence that when facing death, that he would know his God was with him. He could see God's shadow. And with confidence, he would fear no evil. Once again, we're taking time to remember. Once again, I would invite you to join together with me in rejoicing in the fact that God is with us, providing us with his peace. Let's pray. Father, we acknowledge your presence. We thank you that you provide peace for us in the midst of a world that is very confusing. Thank you for the opportunity we have today to pause and remember the cost of freedom. May we ever be thankful. Amen.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks do brightly singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we pass the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not rest, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. We will now have the Stratford Honor Roll, which lists the names of the sons of Stratford soldiers who fell in the service of their country. We will also have the cadets place combat boots at the memorial, indicating each of the soldiers' names that will be read.
Chester Thomas Balderson, World War I. Kenneth Ferguson, World War I. John Gordon Mason, World War I. Alfred Lorne Stewart, World War I. Ralph McGarry, World War II. Daniel W.M. McGinnis, World War II. Donald Edison McCrae, World War II. Allison Boyce McKee, World War II. James Roach, World War II. William J. Stewart, World War II.
The laying of wreaths will now take place under the supervision of Councillor Gary Clough. Yeah. Good.
Representing the Queen, Lieutenant Governor Honorable Antoinette Perry. Representing Government of Canada on behalf of MP Lawrence Macaulay is Judy McDonald. Representing Senate of Canada, Senator Diane Griffin. Representing the Department of Veterans Affairs Canada, Lieutenant General Stephen Bowes. Representing the province of Prince Edward Island, Kerry Taylor. Representing the province of PEI on behalf of Leader of the Opposition Party, James Albert. Representing the town of Stratford, Mayor David Dumpy. Representing the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch No. 1, Charlottetown Conrad, Debbie Reed. Veteran World War II, Norman Thompson, and Veterans on Parade. Representing the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, L Division Chief Superintendent Jennifer Ebert. Representing the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Veteran Damien Dunsford. Representing the Royal Canadian Army Cadets, Commanding Officer Curtis. Representing the Crossroads Rural Community Fire Company. Representing the Stratford and Area Lions Club. representing the Charlottetown Royalty Rotary Club. Representing the Stratford Rotary Club. Representing Our Lady of Assumption Catholic Women's League. Representing the Mayflower Seniors Club. Representing the Stratford Youth Center and Youth Council. Representing Glen Stewart Primary School. Representing Stratford Elementary School. Representing Stratford Sparks and Brownies. Representing Stratford Scouts and Cubs. Representing Stratford's Citizens on Patrol.
For today's benediction, we are pleased and honored to have the Buddhist monks from Prince Edward Island.
Good morning. We're Buddhist monks from the Great Enlightened Buddhist Institute Society, and we're honored to be here today. We would like to share with everyone a prayer that is traditionally sung in Eastern Buddhist temples every evening when the evening bell is struck. As we sing the prayer, you are welcome to pray with us. The meaning of the prayer is roughly the following. May the blessings of this song and the sound of the bell touch the hearts of many. May world leaders join together and peace pervade throughout the world. And those helping others, let their work never be in vain. May all living beings be lifted from suffering and free in all ways from sadness, sorrows, and pain. May destruction, disaster, and famine cease. And may all people come together in harmony and in peace. May even souls in the wild be free to frolic and be. May warfare subside and troops cease marching. May the countless lost lives and those who have sacrificed find solace and joy. May all those who are lost find their ways again. And let us pray for all a safe passage home. May our loved ones, families, our companions and friends, and all those whom we all dearly miss, may we one day reunite in the land of truth and bliss.
这天堂，下东的福，上主当今总统，大同乾坤，下至文武百官，高枕入位，三界十神之内，各面轮回，就有室内之中，洗礼苦海。
Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you inside.